All right, the first question is, what should be evaluated before deciding whether a claim is worth pursuing? And there's several things that you really want to look at when you decide if a claim is worth pursuing, especially if you're the policyholder. Is it going to take so long that it's not worth it to you is a really big question you should ask yourself if you're a policyholder. But if you're a contractor or a public adjuster and you're trying to evaluate things, there are several keys. How much is the deductible? How much is the claim going to surpass that deductible? Is there coverage that is really clear, or is the coverage kind of murky? Because if it's murky and it's gray area and it's going to be a big long fight, then the amount of difference over that deductible might need to be very high for it to be worth your time, worth the policyholder's time, because they may need to get involved in fight. You might want to have a policyholder that looks like or is acting like they're willing to fight from the very beginning. If it's a very clear, very obvious claim, the deductible isn't too high and you're going to end up with a lot more coverage on top of that deductible, then it might be worth it for a policyholder to file the claim. It might be worth you talking to them about it so that they can do that. Other things you might consider are who the insurance company is and what your experience has been with that insurance company. There are times when there was a very clear claim if I was dealing with this carrier, and it was not a very clear claim if I was dealing with this carrier because their own internal guidelines were different. Not just the policy language, but their guidelines. And it made this one very easy if it was with this carrier and not with that one. And so I might take into account who it is I'm dealing with before I decide whether or not it's worth talking about a claim to the policyholder or not. In order to identify that kind of stuff, you need to keep good records. Something that my company did very, very well was kept really solid records of everything. If there was an insurance company and we got some insider information or some general practices from them, we went into the entity in our CRM for that insurance company and we wrote notes on that entity. So everyone that had that carrier, I could see those notes from that entity. So it would make it easier for me to evaluate whether or not we want to take this claim on or take that claim on. Depending on the carrier, we took meticulous notes on everything, every adjuster, every engineer, everybody. And so if I knew I had that adjuster in that area, maybe the way that they do things is going to be different than someone else in a different area. And so that would make me believe one way or the other, this is going to be an easier claim or a harder claim. Maybe it's not worth fighting for this if the delta between the deductible and the amount that it will actually be isn't worth it. So there's a lot more variables you might consider. I think the big tip that I have for you is to just start keeping record of everything. And that way you can start to get a feel based on your data of what's good or what isn't. Granted, it's a lot easier when you have 3,000 claims a year to do that because you have a lot to work with. But that's besides the point. You'll get there. Actually, don't get there. That's too many claims. Far too many claims. All right, I hope that helps.